In the last few years, the popularity of mountain biking has boomed, and with that comes the increased traffic on the trails we ride. Not just at bike parks and trail centres like here today at the Forestry Cycle Centre in the UK, but also on unauthorised trails built by riders themselves. The number of these unauthorised, or sometimes called illegal trails, has also gone crazy in the last few years. So in this video, we'll talk about the impact that's having on the forest for riders and the forest themselves. Obviously, I'm here in the UK, but this is not just a British problem. I've travelled the world and seen some of these trails. Places like Santa Cruz, with a really thriving mountain bike scene, where there's not that many official trails. But here in the UK, we do have trail centres like the Forestry Cycle Centre, where you've got properly made and maintained trails that are graded for everyone. We've got family cycle trails, blues, reds, downhill trails. So you can come here, visit the place, and it's really sort of obvious where you can ride legally and the sort of challenges you're going to face on the different levels of trail. What you get with authorised trails is they're built to a certain standard, they're inspected, they're maintained, they're graded so you know how hard it is, and again they're mapped. With unauthorised trails, it's just the Wild West. You don't know what that trail is going to be like, who's built it. It could be the local pro with massive gaps, it could be the local kid who's never ridden before, so you just don't know what you're getting. Whilst there is a big demand for these trails, people are still building them and they're riding them. Are these trails really jeopardising the future of mountain biking? Because they're causing conflict with other forest users and the forest managers. So let's speak to an expert to get some more insight on the matter. So I'm in the forest with Dawn Thompson, the Head of Recreation and Engagement for Forestry England. Dawn, you're obviously a mountain biker as well.
I am, yes.
Love being in the forest, I presume?
Yeah, particularly like being out on my bike on a day like today.
Exactly. So what is the job of Forestry England in total?
So Forestry England is the country's largest land manager, and that encompasses a number of things from timber harvesting to managing recreation facilities like the Forestry Cycle Centre where we are today. So that's building and designing and maintaining trails, but in general just looking after the beautiful forests and woodlands that we have across the country.
But yeah, like you said, I suppose a really important part of that is you actively promoting cycling to families, to mountain bikers, to get people into the forest. It's part of your job.
Yeah, so you know, we do promote cycling. We have a number of facilities across the country where we've got dedicated cycling trails ranging from, you know, green trails for family riders all the way through to kind of world-class downhill tracks. So we're passionate about mountain biking and supporting that and sustainably into the future as well.
And you see it here, I come here with a family, you see all sorts of, you know, the diverse group of cyclists up to the really serious mountain bikers. And I guess that's more what we're talking about today is some of the more serious, good riders that are looking to maybe challenge themselves more. And that's where we're seeing this problem of unauthorised trails, I guess. And do you think that's a direct result of COVID? It seemed to really happen with people who were just stuck in one place. They just went mad and dug trails everywhere.
Yeah, we definitely saw a huge upsurge in COVID. Not only people picking up a bike for the first time, but those more seasoned, experienced riders going out into their local woods, digging trails, and we just saw a huge explosion in the unauthorised trail network that we now see across the land.
Do you see any problems with more people riding authorised trails?
No, that's not a problem. I mean, that's fantastic. You know, that's what we're about as Forestry England and why we have facilities like this. We want more and more people to enjoy the benefits of being on a bike, the health and well-being benefits that you get from being out in forests and woodlands. So that's fantastic to see more people coming out on the authorised trails. It's where we see that impact on the unauthorised trail network that causes us concern.
It's sort of a problem as old as mountain biking, I think, isn't it? I've been riding since the mid-90s, and you've always seen forests where people, kids, whoever, were getting there and they would dig trails wherever. And I've seen people, you know, get in trouble. I've seen trails kind of be adopted as well. What is the sort of direct impact of someone going into the woods, particularly let's take this forest for example. If someone goes in and says that piece of land looks brilliant, I'm going to dig a trail down there. What is the direct impact on the environment, and what could be the impact on them, the implications on them?
Yeah, so there's a number of impacts. So the impact on the land, so it could be that the trail is being dug in a scientific special interest, could be a scheduled ancient monument there, So the impact on the land can be significant. Impact on people, so with more and more riding on unauthorised trails, they could collide with walkers, runners, people just out walking in the forest, so the impact on people. And then the impact on wildlife as well. So, we're in a biodiversity crisis now. We need to do everything we can to protect wildlife habitats. Particularly at this time of year with ground nesting birds, digging trails where you're not sure what's underneath the ground even, so, badger setts. So that's where we come into the legal implications. So disturbing a badger set specifically is a crime, and you can be taken to court for that. But also going back to the risk to people, if somebody has a crash on an unauthorised trail on something that's been built and it can be proven who's built that, then that person could be liable.
So my local woods up in Shropshire, Eastridge is a place that I've ridden for years, and now that's Forestry England as well, but that is now it's a much lower key place than this, much less trails, there isn't a cafe, there's no facilities. But there's a local group called the Eastridge Trail Partnership that kind of taken over the stewardship of those forests and dealing with unauthorised trails as well. How does that work?
So with organisations like the Eastridge Trail Partnership, we do work under an agreement with them, and alongside obviously the impact of COVID and the explosion of unauthorised trails, we've also had to work now better with community groups and putting in better provision to be able to work with them and allow them to actually maintain, build trails, but to enable them to do that safely. So we have to make sure that when they're digging and building, they're digging and building to our standards, and we can assure the safety of those trails. So we're doing a lot more work with community groups and developing how we work with them more effectively.
And although there's much less riders there than there is somewhere like this, I've always seen trails being dug there, maybe not so much to be fair the last few years, where they have worked definitely with yourselves on that. But in the past I've kind of got frustrated where there's a new trail popping up every 3 weeks, but actually some of the old trails are almost getting overgrown in summertime because not enough people are riding the old trails. So it's kind of like the problem seems like it could be solved quite easily there. If you just revamp an old trail, you don't need to dig a new trail in the first place.
Yeah, I think riders can get bored of riding the same trail over again and again, so you do see that cycle of the old trails, like you say, degrading away and new trails popping up. But actually being able to more sustainably manage the existing trails and perhaps designing and building them in a slightly different way, or making them a bit different so that people don't get bored of riding the same trail over and over again. And that's where we start to see these explosion of trails where people are just digging new things because they've got bored of riding the old trails that they were before.
I think that was going to be my final question. I think you just answered it perfectly. It's like, is this going to be an ongoing problem forever? We've always seen people dig new trails all the time, but is that the solution to this, is making sure that the old trails aren't just being forgotten about?
Yeah, and I think one of the points to make is that in managing unauthorised trails, that actually takes funding and resources away from our pot of money that we have to spend on facilities and trails and putting new trails in. So the more money we spend on kind of taking down poorly built structures and trails where they shouldn't be, the less money we have to actually invest in facilities like the cycle centre, and create new trails and keep that really fresh for people wanting new things.
All right, so we've moved away from the cycle centre, we're out just into the woods, and there's a jump. This is quite a common sight, I guess, on unofficial trails, is people digging jumps. From a rider's perspective, it's not that well made anyway. It's super narrow, you could easily miss your line and crash. What about a sort of trail building unauthorised perspective?
Yeah, as you've said, Neil, it's not very well constructed. It's really loose. There's material underneath that they've used to build the jump, and obviously you don't know what that material is once it wears away. Are there nails and other hazards underneath? And they've also dug a massive borrow pit to kind of create the earth mound that they have. And the danger with the borrow pit is obviously somebody could stumble across it, not know it's there, fall into it. There could be a badger set under there, so they could be unwittingly disturbing badgers. And also, because it's a working forest, where we've got machines in the forest, they can be hazardous to the machines as well. Okay,
so it's definitely a problem I've seen and heard of riders falling into these. But obviously the difference here as well with just riding the thing, this isn't going to be looked after anyway, that like it would be at the cycle centre. It's all regulated when it's made, should we say, maintained, and people check it all the time. This is going to be a surprise for a lot of riders that they don't know it could change from one week to the next.
Yeah, so even the riders that would come and ride this on a regular occurrence, you know, you couldn't be sure that someone hadn't come in and changed the jump. As you say, with the authorised trails, we make sure they're graded, so you know exactly kind of the skill level that you need to get up down the trail, whereas you don't have that here, so you're kind of riding a bit blind.
So what is the forestry's take on something like this? If it's on your land, do you have to do something about it?
If we're aware of it and it's constructed, then we will remove it, just because of the hazards that I've talked about. So yes, we would be kind of looking to remove things like this so that they won't hazard anymore. So we use sort of a risk assessment really to determine whether something needs to come out or not.
We've moved it up a level here. We've got someone who's like, it's quite well made, but this is, you know, probably a black trail sort of drop off where you've got a fast run out that is potentially quite dangerous for your average rider to roll in. Obviously you can't roll off this thing. There's potential for a big crash here. Is this different to the jump we've just seen? Yeah, I mean, this is, like you say, another level. You know, the jump we've just seen, you can roll that. So you have got an option of rolling it. But yes, there is a chicken line here, but someone may give it a go. And as you say, there's a fast run out. So there's it's up another level in terms of risk of accident and injury. And there's a chance, like I say, that someone could hurt themselves. Then there's a certain liability, I guess, of falling on Forestry England or the person that's potentially built this thing. Yeah, and that's you know, the issue that we have with risk is that with structures like this in the woods and forests that we manage that we haven't built, we don't inspect it. You know, there is a liability issue if somebody does have an accident. Albeit if you ride an unauthorised trail, then the expectation is that you're riding it at your own risk because it's not something that we've authorised and inspected for its safety. I've got a kind of question. It's a different thing, you might not know about it, but like a private bike park that we have plenty of in the UK, like for example Revolution, where you've got huge jumps that are man-made. What's the difference in those parks and Forestry England where it's more public access? They can get away with building bigger obstacles, I guess? I guess it comes down to the liability and the risk that they deem acceptable. We have a certain level of grading that we work to. We work with contractors to assess those gradings when we're designing and building structures. We don't have gap jumps, so that's just a decision as an organisation not to have big gap jumps. So we sort of, that's why we would prefer people would ride unauthorised trails, because we know we're building them to a certain standard and to a certain level of safety. So the trail we've been riding it's a natural trail. Obviously there's been jumps built on it, but if those jumps weren't on it, are those sort of trails ever tolerated, or even do they become authorised? So under our guidance that we work to for unauthorised trails, we would tolerate natural trails, desire lines, as long as they weren't in an area like a triple SI or had special protected wildlife in the area. And as long as they weren't interjecting with, you know, an authorised trail that is quite high usage, then we would tolerate trails like this. But also in a working forest, if we come through and do harvesting, trails like this wouldn't be kind of protected and put back in the same way we would with our authorised network. I see what you mean. So they kind of would get destroyed, and that's the end of them, I guess. And what about the community thing? If there's a lot of these trails somewhere where they want to get involved and want to make those trails legit? Yeah, so if there's a kind of concentrated network of unauthorised trails and there is a really interested, enthusiastic community group, then as long as we've got the resource, then we would look to work with that group under an agreement so that they take on the responsibility of kind of maintaining and inspecting those trails, and in that instance we would be adopting the trails as well. So there are examples of where we've done that. Right, so what is the conclusion of all that? It's kind of hard to know, but I guess we are part of the problem. The lust for mountain bikers to dig new trails all the time, that is unsustainable. You can't do that forever. So it might be a case of just working with your local authority to get your trails legitimised. It could be an argument for, like I said before, repairing and revamping old trails. So you're not just digging new trails the whole time. That's always going to cause conflict, and that is what is going to stop the growth of mountain biking, or even stop us from riding in the places we really want to do that. Also, it's going to save the authorities some cash, so maybe they can spend that on building better trails in those places you are allowed to ride. Super complex subject. Let us know what you think down below. Are there unauthorised trails that you love to ride and you'd hate to see mown down? Yeah, let us know. Give us a thumbs up if you love this subject.